thing in the newspaper that for you to read is may consider setting up a committee for this. So what the Supreme Court is basically saying is that they might set up a committee for breakup of all the FIRs. It's just a political news in the sense, but this is an example of judicial intervention. This is an example where the judiciary if there is failure on the part of the executive, the judiciary is saying that we might step into your domain and even see that how you're performing. We don't want to do it in general cases, but we are being forced. If being pushed to the corner, we'll force our hand so that we can oversee this particular process. So this is and basically a kind of an example for judicial intervention into the domain of executive. Then communal violence. I've already told you that communal violence is something that is happening almost in different parts of the country. You can take this as an example. We already have communal violence and sectarian violence in Manipur. This is another example that you can put up in Gurgaon. So again, an example for you to take it up. But what is more important is that if you see the news article down here, cracks in opposition. Now, if you read this particular article, I want you to research about a couple of things. One, the government has said that we are okay with the discussion, a short discussion, and there are different kinds of motions that are there in the parliament. One of the motions and one of the discussion points is on Rule 176, which is a short duration discussion, which is around 2.5 hours. But what the government is saying that we want a full meal, we want a full discussion on this, which is under Article 200 and page number 5, 267. So I want you to read about 267, Rule 267 versus Rule 176. These are the two rules that I want you to read. Under 267, you have a detailed discussion that happens. And we already know that the opposition has already convened and asked for a no confidence motion, which is now slated out on the 8th, where the government would have to anyways do this. The entire discussion needs to take place. So this is where the opposition can bring the executive into or the government into check. So this is something that you can read. Apart from that, there's nothing from the first page. Yes, page number 6. Bill to replace Delhi Ordinance gives Civil Services Authority more power. Again, a bill that you need to go through PRS website. Have a very good this thing about analysis of this bill. Now we already know that this bill was making National Capital Service Civil Services Authority, which is going to replace all the decision making, all the transfers and all the decision making power of the Delhi government to this particular authority. And this authority would have 3 members. One would be the Chief Secretary, the other would be the Principal Home Secretary, both of which are civil servants, IS officers appointed by the Government of India, the Union Government of India, and the third one would be the Chief Minister. And this is the point of contention that can where the representative of the people be supplanted with a permanent executive. So does it go against the federal principle? Does it go against the will of the people? So this is something which the Supreme Court is anyways going to decide. We've already talked about this Article 243 and then this Article 239 and the subclauses of Article 239 and how the government has amended it to take away this power of appointment from the Delhi government. Apart from that, another point of contention in this, if you see this fourth paragraph, the another point of contention is with respect to all the heads of bodies like Delhi Commission of Women, Delhi Electricity Regulatory Board, all these boards. Now the government is basically saying that we will appoint the heads of these. So this is another issue that has been coming up. Then a negative. A negative case that you can possibly take up is that of this gentleman Udit Prakash Rai, who was a 2007 batch IS officer. We already know that in a couple of months ago we read this particular news that this person had raised a Pathan period monument to build his own accommodation, and despite the fact that he is posted in Mizoram, his family still continued to stay in this particular accommodation, and now he has been suspended. Now, what is important for us? One is ethics. You can put it up, but apart from that, what you can also see is that only the president of India is authorized to suspend a particular officer. In exercise of power under Rule 3 of All India Services, 1969. So, in your ethics paper, I mean, you need to read about this All India rules and All India rule services. A little bit of that you need to have a fair idea about. That what are the conditions, how are you protected. In fact, even in the constitution there are certain provisions with respect to the civil servants. You can read those constitutional provisions as well. So this is the article that I asked you to read. Then coming to page number 8, if you see this article, Lok Sabha passes cinematograph bill, piracy to have a hefty fine. So piracy is something that all of us do every day. But with respect to movies, we already know that a lot of these movies are leaked on Instagram, on Telegram, and then on YouTube as well. But now the government is coming out heavily on these this thing, because it takes a lot of money to produce these movies. So therefore the government is checking on this such activities, and they're saying that it will be punishable for up to 3 years or up to 5% of the production cost of the film, or both. So one is the penal provisions that are being introduced. But apart from that, what is important is that you need to research about, and this is your homework, that what you need to research about, that how does the CBFC, first the powers of CBFC and Central Board of Film Certification, who are the members of Central Board of Film Certification, how are they elected or selected, and then what are the powers that they have. But most importantly, what are the different kinds of certification that they give. So for some certification are UA certification, some certifications are A certification. What are the different kinds of certifications that they give? And now what this bill is doing, if you see the second paragraph, if you see the second column, the bill also seeks to give CBFC the authority to grant films with separate certificate for display on television or other media. So they will have separate certificates for all different kinds of media. As only restricted public exhibition UA categories can be shown on television. Only UA films will be there on TV. But apart from that, the board may refuse exhibition of films, officials say, adding that bill allows for blocking of websites URLs hosted pirated content under Information Act. So this is a new development that is happening over this area. Then, but rest you can read this article. And the analysis you need to read through PRS website. Then coming to page number 11. If you see page number 11, US hunts for Chinese malware that could disrupt military operations. So this is again an issue between US and China, but not just between US and China. This is something that China has been doing. What China is doing is creating these backdoors, and you can note it down that what is this backdoors. Behind every technology that it is developing, it is creating backdoors for do surveillance. For example, we recently banned that Huawei as a company will not be allowed to participate in Indian telecom sector. Why? Because we are very wary of the fact that they might have some backdoors. And suppose Huawei handsets are being used in the military in critical areas, and if there is that backdoor that is there, they can monitor it. For example, if we have some kind of technology that is coming from China, which is used in our dam operation, they can anyways open the dam and create a havoc. So this is the kind of cyber warfare that the 21st century might see, and therefore a country needs to be wary of this. And this is the news that this detection of a malware in the system was first detected by Microsoft, and now the US is going through all its critical infrastructure. And I also want you to read about national critical infrastructure. What are the different schemes that we have in the cyberspace? Okay, there is something called as national cyber critical infrastructure. There is one cyberspace policy as well. All of this, and this is a part of your paper number 3 as well. So if you see your paper number 3, there is this cyber security and cyber area. you need to have this 1-pager, 2-pager ready for your cybersecurity policy. What are the kinds of malware that is there, viruses that are there, what kind of policies that we need to have in this critical infrastructure area. So this needs to be developed. Coming to page number 12, folks, two articles which are important: sweet and sour. Now, if you see the sweet and sour, it basically says that India is in a geopolitical sweet spot. Why is it India in a geopolitical sweet spot? Because India has the ability to buy cheap oil from Russia and cheap products from Russia, and then it also has the strategic autonomy, just like France, to sell, to basically interact with the rest of the world. So, and now the world is actually looking at this China. We've talked about China plus one strategy, that the world is looking towards India as the China plus one strategy. But we should also not be complacent with respect to this, because that plus one could also be someone like Vietnam, someone like Thailand, which also have cheap labor. They also have access to ports. But we need to woo the manufacturers. We need to show how strong our manufacturing sector is, how strong our infrastructure sector is, how predictable our policies are. So all of this needs to be shown. But what the article says is that in terms of our sheer macroeconomic data, the headline numbers, we are doing very well. Where our inflation is under control. We have $600 billion in our reserves. Our GDP is growing quite well. If we go by the IMF World Economic it's 6.1%. Then, but what are the issues, what are the pain points? And these are the words that we use, folks. Things that are good for the economy, robust side of the economy. And whenever you have to talk about the negative side, economists use this word called as pain point. So what are the pain points in the economy? So if you see the pain points, you will see one is that not everyone is getting benefited out of this top-end growth. The real rural wages have has almost been stagnant. The NREGA, we already know that the NREGA demand has been increasing, which shows some kind of distress in the economy. And FMCG products, although very recently has shown that yes, there is some uptick in their products, but in general it's still lower than the pre-COVID level. And apart from that, we need to grow at. We already seen that we need to grow at 7.6% for the next 25 years if you want to become a developed country by 2047. So these are the typical issues that you need to know. Pointers to get from this for your answer writing. Then, campus unfreedom. Now, campus unfreedom is basically another development with respect to how the South Asian University has come up with, and it's a university with participation with 8 countries. It's supposed to bring the brightest students from SAARC to the forum to Delhi, and then train them in different courses. But at the same point of time, they have come up with a general declaration during their admission that no students will join any agitation, authority, or protest against the campus authorities. And basically, this is muzzling of the spirit of students, and basically making them some kind of making them acquiesce to the system rather than making them critical thinkers. If you see the philosophy of Delhi University, why elections are there, why student bodies are there. If you see JNU, how many leaders has JNU produced, how many political leaders has Delhi University produced? It's because of the environment of letting students be there and letting students agitate for their rights as well. This is where the student comes into that critical phase of life where leadership skills are developed. So this is very important. And not just that, a very puzzling thing that has been introduced is that students also need to write down whether they are not suffering from any ailment, psychiatric or psychological. Again, who's out to define that what is mental health, and rather than accommodating it, they're kind of stigmatizing mental health. And this is not the first time that is there. Last year they also suspended certain faculties, even from economics. They had suspended someone from South just to basically talk to students with respect to the strike that they've had. So this is an important article for you to read in general. Maybe you can read Taylor's Quake if you are a Taylor Swift's fan. That how Taylor Swift's fan created a man-made this thing. Now, but the important article for me is what data hides and what data tells. This is a very important article which says that in terms of our headline numbers. So one number that we follow every month as an economist is the Purchases Managers Index. You should already be knowing about Purchases Managers Index. If this PMI index for services and for manufacturing is above 50, the PMI is released on every 5th. So in today's newspaper, you will see a PMI news, and on 3rd of the month, you will PMI releases the PMI services. So on 4th of the month, you will see that news. But what I'm trying to tell you is that PMI has been doing really well. If it's above 50, then it shows that the manufacturing or the service sector is in the expansion mode. But the problem is that it is based on a sample data of just 400 companies, and it's not very reflective. Whereas IIP is a huge survey, but IIP and your GDP numbers and your PMI numbers are not going in sync with each other. All of these are basically showing different kinds of things. So therefore we can't just overly rely on these numbers, and that is what this article is saying, that if you see the GDP print for PMI manufacturing is just 1.3% for the last quarter, whereas if you see PMI for manufacturing, it's over 55, which shows the expansion mode, and it is based on 5 indicators with 400 sample size data. Then apart from that, even if we see GST collection, another these are called as, folks, these are called as high frequency indicators. So even if we see the high frequency indicator of GST, and if it's above 1 lakh crore rupees, we say that our economy is doing well. But what is being seen is that if we talk about companies are saying that the sales have not taken up, the sales have not increased, the quantum of sales have not increased. Then why is GST increasing? GST might be increasing also because of the fact that it's kind of an ad valorem tax, in the sense that if the price of commodities are increasing, the GST will also increase. So something which is costing 100 rupees, if it's costing 150 rupees, the GST is 18% on that. So 18% on 150 is more than 18% on 100. So therefore, this is one element that has led to GST increase. The other element that has led to GST increase is the expansion. Now a huge portion of the unorganized sector is now also not part of GST because of the compliance cost that is there. So this is another reason why your GST numbers are increasing. Then if we talk about someone's mic is on. Ashwini, your mic is on, please. So these headline GST numbers are increasing, but that doesn't show the true picture of the economy. And similarly, things like investment, things like exports and imports, you can't extrapolate too much out of it. This is going to give you a snapshot about the economy that can only be relevant for a snapshot. You can't extrapolate and say that the economy is really doing well. So these are numbers that we need to take with a pinch of salt. Then, if you're a Barbie or an Oppenheimer fan, you can maybe read about this particular article. But an important article for me is because two important articles. One is because culture unites all. Now, under the G20 grouping, we also have culture unites all as a culture working group. Just like there are different kinds of working groups. Now, I want you to read about what are these different kinds of working groups that are there in G20. Now, you have these delegations in terms of ministers meeting, but you also have these side tracks. So I want you to read about how is G20 working. What are these side tracks? For example, Y20 is a side track where youth 20 are coming and meeting. Similarly, cultural 20 is again people coming. Business 20 is another thing. So you have these different tracks of discussion where all these different tracks, what they do is that they talk about the economy, talk about what are the issues faced by youth, talk about the issues by startups, and then all of this is given to the ministerial mode, where the ministers will now be given these ideas that this is what the society is looking for. So read about the working of G20. This is very important for this year. Now under our presidency, we also have this culture unites all, and 450 women craft person have created over Lambani embroidered patches. Now I want you to read about Lambani embroidery patches, and you will never be able to understand art and culture, folks, until unless you see videos, you see photographs of it. So that's why when you get this, and if you're making notes, make sure that you paste a picture out of it. If you're reading art and culture, make sure you have enough videos to see it. Paste it in your links if you're using your soft copy. Paste it in your links. Understand what this is, rather than just relying on what is written. A visual impact will have a visual kind of this thing will have a huge impact on your learning outcomes. So it is basically what is very special about Lambani is that all the discarded cloth that is there, different kinds of discarded cloth is there, is stitched together. You make basically a kaleidoscope of different colors, and you make basically different kinds of material out of it. So this time and this culture unites all was launched in Khajuraho, and this is the third meeting that has happened in Hampi. And this Lambani is also an embroidery patch which comes under the GI tag. So if you're not aware about GI tag, I want you to do a research about what are these GI, how does it protect intellectual property. So for example, I'll give you an example, like for example Darjeeling tea. If I produce a tea in Delhi, I can't call it Darjeeling tea because it has to have the character, the taste and the flavor of Darjeeling, and it can only be produced in a particular method in that particular area. I'll give you another example, Tirupati Laddu. It can only come from there. Kanchipuram saris. These are all GI tags. I want you to research about what are the kind of products that can come under GI tag. It's not just these. It can be eating item. It can be toys. It can be so all of this comes under GI tag. And because this shows and this promotes sustainable development as well, because you're using all kinds of discarded cloth, it can also come under culture for life. Life is basically another initiative under G20. So you can read about this. Then that's about the article. Coming to this article, standing with the farmer. Now, standing with the farmer will give you a lot of data points for agriculture. Now, we already know that MSP is one issue that the government is facing, and all the farmers are saying that you need to make MSP as a legal right. Just like you've done education as a legal right, now farming community is asking for this. Now, what is more important, if you see the third paragraph, you see that only 6% of the farmer gets benefit out of the MSP. Very important pointer here. Then, if you see the debt burden, again these are pointers that you can write down in your answer. That NABARD report of 2019 says the average debt of a farmer is over 1 lakh rupees, and this is despite the central government providing a lot of subsidies to the farmers. Then farmers have this right to MSP, and they want it as a legal right. And apart from that, we already know that how the middlemen siphons off majority productivity gains of the farmers. Tomatoes, for example, at times are ruling at 5 to 7 rupees a kilo, and in the urban areas it's ruling at 100 to 150 to 120 rupees a kilo. And we need to increase and we need to basically make it more mechanized. We have to have increase in this thing, agri products, in the sense that processing of agri products needs to happen. New ways of agriculture in terms of hydroponics, in terms of drone irrigation, in terms of drone usage of AI and ML in agriculture needs to happen, and for that investment needs to be done. And then the second part, the second part of the article, the second column talks about that we need to have assured income to this by what is called as C2 cost. Now, C2 cost is basically what is the cost of production including all the imputed cost. So, for example, I am holding my land. Suppose if I would have rented this land, what would have been the rent? So, C2 cost is all inclusive cost. Even if I am working in my farm, my own labor cost is included. And what this Swaminathan committee said is that C2 plus 50%. So, suppose including every opportunity cost, everything with respect to what I've done in the farm, if it's coming as to be 1000 rupees, then 50% of that 1500 500 rupees. So the cost, the MSP that should be given to the farmer should be 1500 rupees. So this is something that should be promised to the farmers. And then we need to cut down on all these middlemen and try to expand to this farm to fork, get the private sector into this particular phase. There are two phases of farming. This is a very important point for us. This is two phases of farming. One is the sowing to harvesting phase, and the second is bringing the produce to the market. And this is something where the private sector can come in and help the farmers to get a more remunerative price. So this is the article that I wanted you to read, and now comes our last page, which is, first of all, ISRO rocket debris in Australia, rules governing space junk. Now, one of the parts of the PSLV, which was unburned, had fallen to in Australia. Now, what is important is two things here. What happens? Everything else you can read, but what happens if these objects cause damage? You have something called as Convention on International Liability on Damage Caused by Space Objects, in which the country which has launched a particular satellite, which has launched something and that falls on the earth and then damages something, it is that country which has launched is liable for this. We've already seen it in Canada versus Soviet Union, where where Soviet Union had to pay a damage of 3 million Canadian dollars. And other thing that I want you to read is the Outer Space Treaty and the Artemis Treaty. There are three things that I'm asking you to read. One is Convention on International Liability on Damage Caused by Space Objects. Very simple. You don't even need to go into that. The other thing that I want you to read is Outer Space Treaty. What is this Outer Space Treaty and the Artemis Accords? These are the three things I want you to read. And this convention makes it absolutely liable to pay for the damages that are caused. Then the second article is employment picture. Now this is a very important article which shows that what is the, and this is based on the CMIE data. So whenever you're writing current affairs in respect to employment, you can always quote this organization called as CMIE, Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, which comes up with what is called as Consumer Pyramids Household Survey, so CPHS. So this is how you fetch marks. You're going ahead of an average aspirant. You're saying this is the current data which is being released by this private organization. Now what this shows is that the number of people who are employed has fallen down. It's still not risen to that old level. If you see graph number 1, it shows that only 412 million people, which is basically almost 42 crore people or 41 crore people are basically employed in India, and among most of them is basically, if you see the self-employed entrepreneurs that have increased, it is the qualified and business community which is not increased at all. It is the self-employed people like that of taxi drivers, mechanics, repairmen, that has increased, but the share of their income is not that huge. The productivity that is produced by them is not that huge. So that is one area of concern for us. And this is what the article is basically talking about. India is not creating well-to-do entrepreneurs. India is basically creating a self-employment category which have poor economic condition. So this is the people who are coming into the gig economy. Something like that, barbers or repairmen, mechanics. So this is something which is not very high end producing economy. Then the next article is with respect to what is happening in Niger. So there is Niger is very important, and I want you to see the map of Niger, the countries surrounding Niger, and this is part of what is called as Sahel region. All of this region is also rich in certain things. For example, Niger is very rich in uranium, and again this is an area where it is West versus Russia. It is said that it is Russia which is basically helped this coup where the military general has taken up, and now the people have turned anti-West in this particular country. So another development that you need to follow. Maybe you can read Pahadis versus Padaris. If you want, but I will not get into it because there is One was Artemis. Another was Artemis. So this is about the newspaper. You can maybe read one more article if you want to read, uh, which is how we have now feminization of bank deposits. Women's share rises to 20.5 per capita, deposits increased to 4,618 rupees in the last 15 years. But what this also shows is financial inclusion on the side of women, that women have now been become part of this particular. So uh, so this is about it, folks. We will meet tomorrow and we will discuss today's newspaper. And I think I had to reach out to someone. I had to talk to someone. Please message me today. I was busy with admissions yesterday, so I couldn't talk to Bhavesh. Yes, Bhavesh, please give me a call around 11 o'clock today, or maybe 1:30. And also Kenisha, I think I need to speak to you as well. You can give me a call around 2. All right. So let's wind up, folks. I hope you are able to complete your entire whatever you have written in your journal, and I'll see you tomorrow at 5 or 5:30. I'll let you know in the morning. Thank you very much.